So welcome, Kishori. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here.
It's great to have you back on the podcast. This has been a while. We took a bit of a break with Rahu.
But don't forget, because you're a brilliant astrologer, you also ask, I can feel your being pulling from me the kind of comments or statements or whatever it is that your heart wants. I mean, it's why we make a good team doing this podcast, doing this chatting together, because of what you already are interested in and what your heart is drawn to. Then that's what's going to come out my mouth. Because I did look at what you said and I thought, well, yeah, okay. And then I thought, well, I mean, that's how I bought my car just now. In 4 or 5 hours, it was done. I woke up and thought, I'm not going to wait any longer to buy this car. It's been 15 days. Well, no, it's been a month, really. And I went, I want it now. And there was a guy in Kerala who used to say, Ipol. Ipol means now in Malayalam. Now. And I would say, Ipol, right now. And I went, Vanessa, I want this car now. So she immediately, I didn't think that she was going to do anything. I said, look, let's get some finance, and even if you have to go and buy a new one. And then she looked and sent me one and another, and this little silvery color one was a Merc. And I thought, oh, I fancy a Mercedes, that's nice. I only wanted a little automatic for getting around in the town and going locally. And I said, right, we'll go and buy it tomorrow. And then she said, hold on. She said, there's some people, they say, going to look at it this afternoon. And I went inside and went, no, mine. So I said, okay. And then I had meetings the rest of the day. And during the one of the last meetings, she said, I can pick you up at 3:45 and we can go and see it now. And I went, right, that's it. And I didn't do anything except feel into the being of the people who were selling it. They were lovely, some family from Romania, but they were just lovely. And I could feel they had no, when you meet somebody and they've got an underlying edge of anxiety, and maybe you do get people coming to see you because that's what people do when they want some help from somewhere, and they consult somebody like, somebody who's psychic or somebody who understands, who knows astrology, for example. But there's often this underlying nervousness that you can feel. They didn't have any of that. So I went, okay, it's cool. So I knew I could take my face value. So I just said, okay. And what was so funny is that there was, the amount that we ended up paying was a good bit less than they'd asked for. But in the count I was going to use was exactly the numbers, 22222. And I went, oh, that's it. It's choice. And that 222 bit, 2 is duality. So it's exactly about choice. And you have to make it quick. And it wasn't until you began to talk to me again about Rahu in Aries, translating Aries. And I went, oh, yes, that's that energy of choose, but choose quick now. This moment, Ipol, now. I just went, yes, okay, done. And I think from the moment I didn't decide, I just intended. And when you can bring something into form in that way, with that kind of Aries feeling, it's so smooth. There's not even a ripple in the solar plexus. There's nothing. It's just. And then I started reflecting on what you'd said about those couple of lines you wrote me to remind me, which we need to say to remind people what it is. Actually, you need to define what we're actually.
Yeah, because you're jumping the gun here. People were like, what?
So I've just finished the story, and then you define it, because I need to hear a bit more what it is. And then I went, oh yeah. And then I put I switched the car engine on. It's diesel, and I've never driven a diesel, and it's like a tank. It's like, I went, oh, that's the power. So it was like, what am I going to call it? Something like Garuda, or something like, I don't know, Bagheera, something like, it's like a panther or an eagle, And I went, wow, this is my chariot. It's so steady and solid. And I knew it was defining this experience of what we're going to play with. today, or what we're going to explore. Anyway, that's just my little personal experience.
I always find it fascinating that every time we get together and we speak about whatever we're going to speak about, it's like you already are on your way ahead of the game. So I just should say to listeners that basically before I hit record, I literally just wrote down, like filled up a page of things you said that I could tie in with Aries. You know, the kind of spontaneity, the impulse, the action, the kind of being very sort of focused on doing something.
Yes, yes.
And because just to place it in context for everyone, the reason we're starting this series like this with Rahu in each of the signs now, not the houses, is it just gives it another flavor. It gives it another, it kind of, you know, the houses are where things happen more so, whereas the signs are it's like coloring it in. It's like you've drawn the picture and now you're going to color it in because of the sign.
Right.
So of course,
I understand. For me, it felt like the houses are kind of more a context, more general, and then when you get to the transit, it's movement, isn't it? It's for me, it's action. It's like how we fulfill, how it happens. If you know what I mean.
And that's actually bringing it up to the minute, because Rahu is about to, or it has already moved into Aries, depending on what calculation you use. So it's already moving into Aries in this domain of this impulse to act.
And one of the things that I find is that at the beginning of something, it's if you let go, the first impulse, and this is what when we're going to talk about what people call manifesting, which I don't really like the word too much, but bringing something or allowing something to come into form that you've seen, if you really surrender to the first impulse of the heart and go with that, and don't spend 10 days going over and Shalashantai and all that, you weaken the impulse. But you have to be ready. And if you've not trained yourself to really feel that simplicity, then yes, perhaps it's wise to be cautious. But whatever you do, it weakens.
That makes so much sense to me, because you know how when people use vision boards,
yes,
and they like have this vision of something that they want, and they're like, you could relate that to Aries for sure. It's this sight, this vision, this thing you want, and that impulse to move on the first instance gradually fades after a time, because obviously you're putting it up there and envisioning this whatever you want, but by doing so you're actually saying that I don't have it yet, I don't have it yet.
Exactly. And that is where this error of the mind, that I love that word, Pragnam Parada.
Prajna Parada, I think it is.
Anyway, whatever. We'll get it right one of these days. Keep putting it onto the sound thing to listen to it on, to remind myself, because it's not a word that people say very much.
It's like the fault of the intellect or something, I think it's.
Yeah, the mistake of the mind.
Mistake
of the mind is to, if you go to it too much and you've not practiced in little ways of letting go into the impulse, the keala, this Bengali word that I first saw in writings by Ananda Maimar, or the story about her. And I went, that's the word, that's my yoga. So I call all of my yoga, which is encompasses quite a lot of different modalities. It's keala, it's that. And if you go with, oh, wow, that would be, oh, that's a fabulous, yum, you know, the first taste, like the first taste of some beautiful thing that you've been longing to eat. The second is not so good, and the third is not. So, and so it goes on, and you don't really need more than that first taste if you eat it savoring every little delicious melt in the mouth moment. And you know, it's and that's what we do, and that's what human beings do. Is what I did for years. I won't believe it now, but I do, and still I'm like that. So that's why I know it so intimately, this destruction of the mind, which says yes, no, and this is the kind of schizophrenic, bipolar swinging until it settles. But if you don't need, as long as you've done the swinging and preparation, and that those words, are you ready? Now, what does being ready mean? I've had that for so many years, and I used to write it at the end of it was my little sign-off thing, you know, for my email signatures once upon a time. Are you ready?
Are you ready? That's a really good one. I'd love to sign my emails off with that. Are you
Yeah,
ready? Like
yeah.
you've already preempted all of what I was going to talk about, and in
Oh,
a way, you've jumped
there's nothing
as
else, I'm sure.
well. Yeah, I'm sure, but at the same time, I always like to draw it back with what is the initial impulse for astrologers to do with Rahu in Aries and to talk about the problems,
Yeah.
to talk about where it actually doesn't work, where we kind of get in our own way, sort of thing.
The mind, we don't get in our way,
The
but
mind gets in the
with
way.
the identity, it's always, what are you identifying with? Are you identifying with that cautiousness of the mind, that extra, or are you identifying with the one who knows everything? It's all known, it's already done. I mean, the whole of this story, the end state, if you like, if there ever is an end state to the endless, the never-ending story, it's that I am already what I am, the fullness of what I am, the Purna, and yet we have to go step by step by step to savor it, to unravel, and so that the mind can be illumined. You know the old stories that said, oh, just let go of the mind, let go of the mind. And I used to think, no. And my inner would say, but the mind is also a precious child of the heart. What it needs is to be illumined, and it will only be illumined by putting its roots deep, by allowing its roots to be deep into the heart field. Because the mind is a flower. Oh, you can see, if you want to think your mind up here, it's already a flower, like a blossom in the head. But it's no good if it's okay. It manages. It kind of hobbles along.
It's interesting how you say about the head, because of course Aries literally rules the head in astrology.
It's the starting point, isn't it?
It's that, like jumping in head first.
Right. So this thing that I said to you at the very when we first met about just putting simply like a child, putting your hand on your heart, and that already draws the energy into the embodied heart field. It has to be embodied as well, not just some fantasy, but embodied. And then the mind starts to remember its root. And the root is in that, not just the human heart, but this is the place in the body that we locate it. I haven't got all the details to express about why that is so, but take from me ears for now. And then when it's rooted, it is absolutely, then it can be the leader. Then it's your focusing tool. Then it is the tip of the arrow of the Zen archer. But the Zen archer has trained for years. The breath, the posture, the feet on the ground. He's explored every. So when the arrow is let go, he is ready. When he lets that arrow go, he just releases. He doesn't do anything. He's holding the bow. He's ready. He's poised, and he lets go. And it isn't, oh, maybe it will hit the target. It's a done deal. He's already practiced so much that he knows that the consequence of that let go is that it hits the target. And that's, if you like, describes the situation or the state. Not that I'm in that state every minute, but when I'm doing a big purchase, I do what the mind does, which is go around, shall I, shan't I, how much of this, that? I didn't have a thought. I just let go. And it didn't, and there was no deciding. I tried to think back to deciding, and it's just like that. No choice. The choice has already been made to live in that way. So every little tiny thing that we do, whether it's paying attention when I'm tidying up the mess in the knife and fork, the cutlery drawer, for example, I'm still playing my fairy tale, if you know what I mean. Because our life is a fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
When you let yourself lift the spell. Anyway, sorry, I'm jabbering on.
No, it's just always amazes me how you really like nail it. And like I said, I had to scribble down all of the thoughts that before I pressed record, you came out with, and it's kind of like it already was like Aries, Aries, Aries all over, and like the doing, acting, and allowing. right? That thing you said about doing from that place, you
Yes,
do act from that place, but then
yes,
it's more of this allowing. Like you say, the archer and letting the arrow go. What I'm thinking about right now is
yeah,
Aries and how it's very much like that kind of pioneering, impulsive sort of take action, but also inspiring others.
yes.
That's what I feel like with Aries. Like, for example, there are many, I was once at a college where I was training as a fitness instructor, and we went into this hall and they divided everybody up into 12 groups. They put down mats and put down the 12 signs of the zodiac in this big hall. And they asked everybody to go to your sign, right? And so everybody gathered in signs, and most of the people were gathered in Taurus, right? So this is sun sign, right?
Yeah, go
But
on. Yes, yes, yes.
so that's sun sign. Most of the people in this, remember, it's a fitness instructor course. So it's people who are like really getting into instructing people to be their best self, you know?
Yeah,
So most of the big group, the biggest group was in Taurus. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because tropical Taurus is sidereal Aries.
right, right.
So all of those people who had sun in Taurus, most of them will have had, when they were born, sun in Aries. The sun is said to exalt in Aries.
Right.
For that reason, it's like combining the Mars impulse and to act, but coming from that higher on up place of self, higher self.
Yes.
You know, so it's like it's not a coincidence that instructors are any kind of instructor, anyone who inspires has to connect in with that higher being to inspire. If you're just like, oh, I'm just doing this for whatever, like selfish reasons, that kind of small s self is not the same as the connection to the higher self.
But they can become, as maturity happens, they can become one. I'm thinking of my own son who's got Mars on the ascendant. And I'm
Oh, there
thinking,
you go.
and there are lots, well, other things as well. He's got Sun in Pisces, well, but so it's an interesting combination. But many, excuse me, many famous. I'm drinking this drink, and I put a bit of cocoa in it, and
You're drinking some cocoa.
it's coffee with. I drink 1 cup a day, and it's coffee, but I put in some cacao, some raw cacao.
Oh, wow. That'll get now interesting how you say that, because Mars rules the bitter taste in Indian astrology. So
Well,
any kind of bitters, whether it's like coffee or cacao, gets you going, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the whole
Well,
point of Aries. It's about, getting motivated to go.
I drink a bulletproof coffee, usually, not always, but some mornings I drink a bulletproof coffee with a little bit of grass-fed butter and a bit of coconut oil.
Hmm.
Just, and then I won't eat until about 5 in the evening because I don't get hungry. So I eat a little bit. Some days I don't eat.
I used to do that bulletproof coffee, but I found that I was losing lots of weight because I
Oh,
wasn't eating.
oh, oh, well, I could lose a bit of weight. I could
I,
do.
I don't really need to, and I wasn't eating.
The thing is, a lot of the real, you're talking about inspirational, a lot of the real inspirational gurus have Mars on the ascendant, as you probably know. But I've done a little bit of research into different, years ago, I wanted to understand when I was younger what a guru was. And I started looking at all sorts of ways and the different.
Hmm.
It was a time when I was told very clearly that the time for the outer guru is over and everyone awakens their own inner guru. This has got to be 40 years ago. I was looking at that research. And so I started looking at astrology, gurus' astrological charts
Mm-mm.
when I was playing with the circle chart. Anyway, it's great. It's so simple. And even astrology, which used to be a closed book years ago, becomes very simple when you look at it with the eyes of the heart. For me, it's simple.
Mm.
Just feeling it. It's exciting just to feel it. Yeah, that's the weather.
That's like you said before we started here, that any action that's taken from that rooted in the heart, as opposed to just, that impulse without really being that connected to the
Yeah,
heart field, right?
yes.
Because let's face it, we could bring in Rahu now here and like, maybe you could say that Rahu in Aries is too impulsive, right? that it might exaggerate, distort, or create where someone, I've literally heard of this, where somebody with Rahu in Aries, now this is extreme, I know, but someone with Rahu in Aries in their chart jumped off a building.
Yeah,
They wanted just to feel what it was like or what would happen if they jumped off the building. Now, luckily, they didn't kill themselves, but like obviously they hurt themselves.
I often use that as an analogy that until you really know, you have embodied it becomes innate. Don't go and climb on the roof and try to fly, even if you do have the impulse. You have to use your common sense until you get to the moment where you're so integrated, you're so in yoga completely that you levitate, like St. Francis of Assisi or Bernard of Cupertino or whatever they are. They were so blissed out that they just float off into the air.
Can you see how Rahu could create this issue here where it's this all or nothing?
That's right. But the all or nothing is actually really okay. And you think of that Rahu is what I call condensing. He condenses, it's like squeeze, that we've used the word squeeze. But depending on where the astrology is, it's going to be experienced differently. But what you are moved to express, if you like, what you're moved to express will always be appropriate if your default is the heart field. And whenever there's a wobble of any kind or any excessive emotion, and I don't mean feeling is different. You can have deep feeling where you're weeping because that newborn baby or that sunset or something happens. It's that the emotion that takes you out of the center. If that's too much, whether it's too hot or too contracted, then that kind of burns it all up or destroys it. So you've got to actually be ready. And what does being ready mean? It means wired up, right? Wired up. The mind is fabulous. It's illumined. When the mind rests in the heart, then whatever comes out your mouth, it's just like, it's on point. So
it's interesting how with Mars ruling Aries, Mars literally rules the nervous system, and the brain, obviously. It's like the commander. It's like the army that's sent out to do the job that, it's meant to do. And it's the sun that rules the governments, right? So the government gives the order to Mars to give the order to the muscles, Saturn, to move. So it's like even in the body, the way it's like the brain then functions, goes, sends off the signal through the nerves to move the body. It's that you're not thinking that, you just move it. It's like it's just in the moment, right?
So right now is a fabulous moment to be fulfilling or putting into action inspirations and moving. And it just feels like might be a fabulous moment for the world to settle a bit, even though it's bringing up lots of dust. But
the shadow side, because that's the other side of it, right? There is literally, there are always wars on the planet. Mars is always somewhere creating a war, right?
Conflict in some human being somewhere, and while
always. But that's the other side of that's Rahu, the shadow side of it. But you're right that at the same time, and I sense it too now, the sense of newness and sort of vitality coming in to kind of, and that spurs us on to make, like you did with your car, you just bought it just like that. I can sense that newness, that newness and that freedom of movement as well, which is Aries.
It's so lovely. It's so clean. It's been in somebody's garage for about 3 years. Haven't driven it. Some wife of one of the cousins of this Romanian family, and it's like pristine. It's like beautiful. That quality of the Mercedes. It's like, oh, wow. And I only wanted a Mini, so I'm so pleased with it. But I don't know, not really excited, but pleased that it's appropriate for me. It matches where I'm at right now.
I want to go back to this, the sense of impulse, and I wrote down a few words here myself.
Yes.
Adventure, fearlessness.
Yes.
We definitely tie that in with Rahu and Aries. Individualistic, freedom-seeking, movement, energy, and now I'm adding your words, intense.
Yes, it's
and
what I get is
condensing
that it's
and precise.
condensation. It's
Mm.
it becomes like a fireman's hose, which when it's well directed and it's fabulous, but left goes all over the place like ball lightning, you know.
Mm.
Yeah. So yes, intense, but it's condensed.
Intense, condense. And then another word that is often applied to Aries that we could look at in a different way, because you mentioned it already, is selfishness.
Yes, it can look like selfishness, like Ramana Maharshi. I'm having an experience of death in 15, and he decides, all right, that's it. So he's left his whole life. He walks out, takes the money for to be paying for his college fees, and goes and sits and Arunachala and never moves. But look what's grown around him. And I suppose people on here will know who Ramana Maharshi is, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Everybody does. But look what he did. Look what's happened from that. And it's like Jesus in the temple. Don't you know that we've been searching for you? He's 12, and we've been, and he said, well, I have to be about my father's business. Well, my father's business is the business of becoming the heart field, or becoming love, or embodying your true dharma, your true identity, the real I am. And that can look like, oh, you don't care about me. But there you go.
I'm reminded of, like, when you're on a plane and you're told, like, when you have a child with you, you're told to put on your own mask first, and then you can look after the child.
Yes,
It's like,
yes.
if you're not selfish enough, I think Osho said this as well, like that true altruism starts with selfishness.
Of course. If you've not got a body, a vehicle in which that's functional, in which to exist, in which to play the game, you can't be any use to yourself or anybody. So you're out of the game.
Hmm. So what is this game with Rahu then? I want to really dig more into this Rahu in Aries as it
Ask me
moves in, because it's going to be here for another a year and a half now.
What
Until
is?
Rahu will transit Aries until November 2023.
Okay, so
So,
all right. So I obviously don't quite get to when the transits are.
so it's
But we're
about
going to do
18.
a podcast once a month, aren't we? Something like that.
We're going to do that, but that my thought, just to kind of let everyone know, that my thought here was to start this series with Rahu in Aries, because Rahu is just moving into Aries, in sidereal Aries.
All
But
right.
we'll do one every month. By the time we get around in a year's time, yes, it'll be a few more months, like, because we may skip a month here or there, I don't know. But
Yeah.
by the time we get around to Pisces, the last sign of zodiac, Rahu will be moving in soon after. So it's
Right.
kind of a nice way to finish up the whole journey. Because what's interesting is that Rahu doesn't start at the beginning of a sign. It starts at the end of a sign and works its way back to the beginning, which in the next year and a half, I imagine it'll be very much about, let's understand why this impulse, maybe. Let's understand why we went here, why we did this.
I love this idea of going backwards. It feels, I mean, I don't understand totally, but I feel it like, wow. I mean, I told somebody, Vanessa, that about it, this going backwards, and she went, oh, wow. Because not that familiar with astrology to understand, to know that piece of information, but it feels like somehow trawling back or reviewing life. I don't know. I can't speak about that because I don't know. I'm just going, wow, something magical about that, and I want to find out. But I shall find out as we progress.
As we progress, because that's what's interesting, because we'll progress through the signs, like in clockwise order, zodiacal, like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and we'll tell that story. But the story could as easily be told in precession, like looking back at the signs, because that's how the ages progress as well. We're now in the age of Pisces. It goes back into Aquarius. It was before this age of Aries, then went back to Pisces, right? So, and actually, I had a conversation recently with an astrologer called Ricky Blythe. She's in Durham, and she's just written a book called The Nth Degree. And she talks about how both the sidereal and the tropical zodiac work, and how actually they work. She calls it the nth degree. It's almost like you have to take the sign to the nth degree, and it expresses the previous sign. So it actually, you need to look back. So Aries is the impulse to act, and it's about go, 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 do, do, do. But that impulse taken to the nth degree becomes passivity, which is Pisces, because you can only go, go, go and do, do, do for so long, and then you allow something. So you've said it, doing, acting, allowing.
Yes, yes. It's almost, there's the impulse, and then there has to be a letting go, a surrender into allowing the impulse. So like I was speaking about the Zen archer, he just has to let go. He just, once he's got it all lined up and he's practiced, and for his 50 years or however long he's been practicing, and he knows it's not even a faintest chance of him missing the mark, because he's so in alignment.
I want to share something with you because I think it's so relevant in terms of our conversation here. And that is, let's divide Aries into the lunar mansions, the nakshatras.
Right.
Because the story is told through these three signs. So the first sign of the lunar mansion of Aries is Ashwini, which is, yes, I call the swift one. The symbol is a horse, like a horse bolting out of the stables, you know?
Yes,
and that energy is the initial impulse of Aries. You just go out and not think, just do. The second one is called Bharani, and I call it the productive one. It's Yoni is the symbol, which is about producing something, creating something, but it also has a tie-in with the god that rules this is called Yama, the god of death or discipline. It's about, the fact that we're born means we have to die, but the fact that we have to kind of Bharani, literally, that's the word, bear down on something to make it happen, to produce it, to give birth to something. But the third one, now remember that Rahu is moving backwards through these, not forwards. Right. The third one is Kritika, the knife, the blade, the precision, the sharp one.
Right.
So all these three lunar mansions are placed in Aries. So that's why they're so productive and creative and disciplined and focused and precise.
Yes.
But remember, Rahu is going backwards through these. So it starts with the precision. It actually starts with the precision. Like the arrow really, in a way, is already left, right? But maybe the backtracking through the sign for Rahu is understanding where that impulse came from. That's what I was saying, is that maybe it's trying to understand, tying it back to the beginning of the sign. Where does the initial impulse come from? What do we want to create?
Exactly. There's that question, clarity about what do you really want. In the there's a particular process I call heart communication, where you have people sitting opposite each other and asking that very question. Tell me what you really want. Tell me what's your heart's desire. Tell me what you're willing to give life to. Tell me what you're willing to allow in your life. And that, tell me, getting that clarity, once you get that clarity, which I did have that morning, Monday morning, for my car, I just knew today, now. But it's getting swift, in my experience, in my life, the precision of my desire is getting swifter and swifter. And I was just thinking about the astrology, just like, I'm sure astrology becomes more and more fascinating the more you rest in the heart field. Because then you can see what it's describing, if you like, rather than finding out with the mind what I can do with it and then doing something with it. It's allowing the wave to carry you, a bit like Osho getting caught up in the current when he was a young man, and rather than fighting to get out of it, he just lets go, and he's immediately, within seconds, tossed out onto the bank, the other side of the river, instead of drowning, because it was a strong current he got caught in. So you could see Rahu like that, you let go. You have to really get ready. And you don't have to be that ready. You can both go to the heart, put your hand, anybody listening, put your hand on your heart if you're in the middle of what seems to be a Rahu current that's caught you, because Rahu will catch you more than more. And if you're unwary, you'll fall into it and struggle. Now, the struggling is what is the problem. There isn't a problem until you don't struggle. If you go to the heart field, and it will lift you out onto that somehow in the most magical way. As we know, don't we? I mean, magic.
It's magic. I mean, I feel like that is how I generally use astrology, and I don't think I even use astrology. I'm an observer of what's happening, and I go then to confirm it in the lineup in my mind, often just instantaneously. But it's like it's the combination of the lived experience as well. It's not like I'm completely detached from my life and just, oh, let me plan it around this. Aries now is active, so I better do this, right? No, I'm living my life, right? I'm feeling it out, right?
That's why you're so good. You're so brilliant.
Well, it's good for me anyway. I mean, in terms of allowing other people to get in the flow of it, I think this is why I've benefited from speaking with you over the last year. And I actually really know that my readings now have improved enormously because let's face it, a lot of people come to me with Rahu type issues because I myself am in a Rahu cycle, right? And we can talk about that in a minute. But now I feel like I have access to something. Like you've literally opened up this kind of, it's like I've been working with this toolbox and now it's like, oh, there's this other compartment in this toolbox, and you open it up and it's like it's just opened a whole other, like, and you go in and there's like a whole room inside, whereas before it was just this toolbox, right? So that's what I feel like you've done for me. It's like it's allowed me to anchor people in their heart, which is really all it comes down to, really.
But that's what everybody is. We're all portals to each other, and depending on what it is that your deep heart is looking for, then those beings, if you let them, they are just drawn into your life, and they mirror, because it's heart field embodied in Gary, and it's illumination embodied in Gary. It's not particularly me, although it is me in some way. It's not.
No, I know what you're saying.
The
I know what you're
raspberry
saying.
is tasted in your mouth. That's where that's where the treasure is. But if it doesn't become innate, and I have talked to many people over this lifetime, as you can imagine, but if anyone takes it and makes it innate and explores and brings it into what they already are and know, then it really is, it takes root and it blossoms and brings a thousandfold fruit. It's just amazing. But you have to make it, you have to say, oh, I love that. I love some of that. I want that. And you find it in yourself, because no good if it's mine. It's got to be innate. So it already was there all the time. And all of us have everything within us anyway. So all you have to do is go, oh, that's marvelous what Kishori is doing, or it's marvelous what Gary's sharing. And you go, okay, where is that in me? Same, exactly the same with shadow things. If somebody is like the world, the conflict, I go and I find any traces or any little bits, or I remember a story or a memory, and I play with integrating that bit. And I played with groups as well, doing that, playing that the shadow energy, the Rahu energy. And I will say we had so much proof. Sometimes you take somebody in public view, it's on the newspaper or the news, and then the next day, whatever it is that we played with, revising, just happens. And you can say, yes, we were picking up on something that was already a flowering in the global mind, in the cosmic awareness, or but we're all the cause, so it doesn't matter where it was. If you shift the contents of your mind around into the heart and intend something, it will happen. There's no question. But it's so good listening to me saying it. It's got to become innate. You've got to try it out, experiment, practice a bit of Atma Vichara, a bit deeper, and play with unimportant things or things that don't seem so important. And you go, oh, wow, all I have to do is nothing, no doing, but I have to shift the way I engage with this frequency, shadow or brilliance or whatever. It doesn't matter. I know that my deep love affair with Rahu all my life has been it's been catalytic for all of this. I've explored it since I was tiny. I wanted to understand how the world functioned, because it didn't seem to be the way that grown-ups saw it. And then gradually, I met Rahu and the Song of Rahu and stuff like that. But it's the way you engage with something that looks like tragedy, and you just see you can see it's a lion's paw going, or it's just a little kitten going, come on, this way, this way. I see him as a psychopomp, a bit like Mercury Rahu. He's showing me the way. So I
love it, Fair. I want to talk about the other side of Rahu always, because I always want to bring in that side. So maybe the contracted side more so, where when I think about Rahu in Aries, for example, and I'm quite Aries like in my own way as well. I've got Mars in Aries, so I'm very kind of gung-ho about things, and how sometimes I can really rub people up the wrong way. I can as Pearl Finn, my teacher, used to say always, oh, you really like shoot from the hip, you're Scorpio. So you need to be mindful of that, because you don't want to like cut the legs off someone and, pull the rug from under them.
I never saw that side of you. Never.
Well, I'm pleasant, I'm nice and all that. I'm well-mannered because I've got Venus in my rising sign. So I'm nice about it, but I do want to get to the issue.
Come on, then.
Very precise, but I do sometimes, I do it nicely, but maybe that's why it kind of like mitigates it somewhat. I kind of do it in a nice way, but I want to get to the problem. I want to get to the thing, to get to the core issue. And another side of that for me with Rahu would be this expression of just doing whatever the hell you want in any moment, and how other people are going to get really triggered by that. Now let's blow this out into the world now at the moment. And the most extreme example of that is Russia wants to invade Ukraine. Right, that is the impulse, right? So how do we, looking at that, because we can do it individually, maybe we need to start there. But because I'm at the moment,
sorry, go on.
I'm at the moment like getting like sucked into all of that and looking at it helplessly and trying to kind of bring that to the heart field and just not contract around what's happening.
I could tell you what I've been playing with it, shall I?
Please.
Very simple. The day that I looked on my laptop and I saw, oh, they've actually gone to war, because it's really we don't know the cause, we don't know the origin, we don't know all of the personal and the impersonal, the history of it. And some people explain it, but you're never going to find. It's too complicated. So I go, okay, I can pick two people, and I did it with Mr. P and Mr. Z, and I just sat them down and I had a little conversation with them, because I know for them personally, it'll be back to their filters, their imprints, their conditioning, and whatever it is, to make those decisions. And then I made them connect, and they became like kids playing bow and arrow with each other, in my experience. And I went, okay, then I've said my intention that it harmonizes. Then I played with the culture, the spirit of each of the lands, and then other countries that we won't go into all of it, that might be influencing or manipulating or whatever. And I just play with them like they are a child's spirit, like the spirit of each country. Because when you look at the essence, they're just very beautiful, full of fairy tales and full of beauty and fabulous landscapes. And then so that, and I know that what I have done or I am doing, and I'm sharing with the groups, but I've got lots of groups seeing it, but not just seeing it smoothed out, but going to the merging of the hearts, because they all are really underneath all that froth. There is a heart field. I know it's all okay at some level. I know, and I'm just expecting something to shift out of the blue. That's the way I kind of feel about it. But it's the merging of the two beings, rather than just, and it's got to be at a personal feeling level. You've got to get to that level of feeling, like taking two people or two the diva of the Davic being that overrules each country or something like that, to be a personal, down to the tiny little bit, because it's too big, and the history of it all and how they might get off into the mind. But I know, because I can feel in my body when I hit that connection, there's a signal comes from my body, a kind of like a thrill or a kind of relaxation, or the contraction's gone. It's one of the tools, if you like, the skills that I share with people. But that way, you don't even need anyone to teach you, because we all know everything that I have to say. It's all innate anyway. But if you see the heart underneath because you're never going to get what we call mental justice. Because you can't. I mean, look at something like Israel or Ireland. Or sometimes people just put a bit of what I call syrup on shit. They paste it over, and it works more or less for a while, and then the Kraken wakes from the depth again, you know. But it has to be resolved at the heart, and then something beautiful happens. I don't know how, but I've allowed it, and I'm playing that with other people too. And that deep knowing that completion has already happened. You've got to go to the place where it's already happened, as everything already has in our, because we're living in a time bubble, but actually we exist before and beyond space-time. We came here to have a little game and then explore. And that's all. So the final state, or the ultimate state, because I don't like to use these dualistic words like final, because there is a never any end. But when you say, well, when it's over, when it's done, I think you said something when it earlier on, and yeah, it depends on what the identity is. If you identify with this body, yes, there's an end. Because there's an end, because these bodies that we're operating in at the moment are mostly archaeological. We've got loads of history left to be unraveled, but the real essence, the real expression, that's never ending. There's no death for that. But mind doesn't know it. Think, oh, what's it like to be disembodied? No, I like my body. I'm going to hang on to my body because body's useful, but only to a certain level. Anyway, there you are. That's how I look at any kind of conflict, and I go and find some aspects within myself. And I'm playing a lot with deliberately merging of the opposites and merging of the masculine and feminine frequencies at the moment. Merging of the opposites. It's just the most amazing way to resolve things. Not polarizing, not staying with one pole or another. Finding the third thing. I don't know why I always think of it in Spanish. La tercera cosa. I don't know why, but anyway, it's the third thing. It's like the child. You have male and female body, and it produces the third thing, which is the child, which is the newness embodied. And then it gets old and Quasimodo, and you know, and then the more newness comes. But we are living in some magical times.
There's a lot of that side of the darker tones, right? Yeah, but there is a lot of magic available as well, I think, at this time, and the newness in this transit, at least in this time period. But again, that, I guess, like you said it perfectly in terms of finding that balance, but also that third thing, because
Yes.
we could say that, and we often do with Rahu, and then the opposite Ketu, the south node, we talk about it in terms of this and that. Rahu in Aries, me. Ketu in Libra, but forget about you.
Yes.
Because in the me, there is no you.
No, that's right.
Right, because that could be one extreme. But like you say, coming together, coming into balance with the other, and finding that third expression, I think is great.
So we find that union of Rahu and Ketu. It's beautiful. He's so perfect for moving beyond polarities, and he will lead to the union, back to Nagpasuki.
But of course, at this time, what we're seeing is more of that, which what I'm struck by now is that actually, like you say with Rahu, it is that, extreme to bring us to that place. So we are seeing more extremes now in terms of the kind of, me, or war, whatever it is. But then it will eventually take us back to that place, because of course Rahu goes through Aries, but back to Pisces. Back to the loss in the way, looking at the devastation, but also the letting go, the surrendering, all of that action.
Yes.
It's going to be an interesting year and a half, I think, in many ways, personally as well, of course, and for everyone. But I think if we are able to tune into this, like you say, and into the heart field, and mind rooted in the heart, in that whatever we want, and for that, action to come from that place. Because when you say that, I feel very inspired But when many times, and I try this many times, do anything from that place of not really that sense of knowing or that centered space or whatever it is, I'm losing words here, but basically that kind of, we all know it. Like when we do something and we're really not really 100% sure if we should be doing this, but we just want to do something. It's like we're just frustrated because something's not happening.
It's the allowing bit, and it's the word doing, which I think has to be eliminated.
The word doing, okay, yeah.
Because when we speak of doing, it's coming from the limited identity, you know, that limited self that's not rooted in the wholeness, in what we really are. But it's not that you don't have the little self. It has to be the whole continuum. We actually have access in this body to all of the dimensions, right back to the initial, the first breath, and before that first breath, and the knowing of our identity prior to space-time. And that's all available through this little thingy that we call body. So it's all there, but it's like you get to the end of a story, and because it's the never-ending story, it's like in my end is my beginning, you know, and it's the continuum loop. I love the story of Rahu and Ketu because I can imagine it. It's like if he gets the tail in his mouth, he's in that Euroboric state of, and yet you have to have that cut off. You have to cut the umbilical cord. You have to, it has to, in order to experience choice, which is the great benefit of duality. It's not the benefit, but one of the primary good things that come is that we are able to choose. And if we don't choose, the true human being doesn't come. We have to have the full spectrum to choose from. And now we're seeing all of the crap coming out the woodwork. It's like the possibilities are endless. I mean, they always were, but we didn't see them because we got this thin layer of syrup on the surface. So got to be nice and got to be tidy, and we can be manipulative, but behind the scenes, secretly, you know, don't let anybody see.
I'm always reminded of what again Pearl said to me years ago with Rahu, in that, you know, when I asked her, can you quote unquote do Rahu you know, without stepping on people's toes, and she said in a heartbeat, no, you can't do Rahu without stepping on people's toes. And I keep going back to that because I think it is relevant at this time where,
Yes.
you know, any kind of newness, doing something is still a breakaway, like you say, the breaking away from that state. And like that is sometimes disturbing to other people.
Yes.
Like, oh, all of a sudden you want to go off and do what now? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So how do we find a sort of more, maybe that's a good way to finish it. How do we kind of come together with people while doing what we want?
I guess to stay, to integrate yourself, to stay in that heart field, to know that the expression, when it comes from the heart, draw automatically. I said to you at the beginning about Rahu, when you fully embody everything, and that full allowing is that it benefits everybody around you. And I'm playing with a community, drawing a community. Do you know how many people that either Vanessa or I know have been drawn to where I'm living, are selling their houses, are coming to live near here? A bit like, if you call, I can't compare myself to Ramana, but he went and sat in an Arunachala, and look at what grew up around him, and look what grew up all over the world, the knowing, the practice. So be the heart, rest your mind in your heart before you express, and what you express automatically draws everybody else into their own knowing, and they don't see you as separate, because it's when the mind perceives itself still to be separate. I want to do this. Then we get all these disparate elements in conflict, like the Tower of Babel effect, you know, when nobody could understand each other. I can only really understand somebody that appears to be going against my personal direction by seeing, oh yes, feeling into them and becoming them. And when you play that with other people, somehow they will be drawn, or they'll just go off and do their thing for a bit, but it comes back, they come back. And what I'm experiencing now is people coming back into my life who I've not seen for a long time, which is very interesting. I'm not doing anything about it, but just taking care of what I am doing in every moment, like making it all of a piece. Like I used to talk about going to church on Sunday mornings. I've done your God bit for the week. You know, you've done that, the holy bit, and now you can get on with whatever. It has to be the whole of your life. The way you make the bed, or the way you don't make the bed, or the way you allow the chaos to just be, but loving it anyway. Or the way I tidy out the cutlery drawer, or do you understand what I mean? It's all a big doll's house game. And it can become as light as that. I don't want to go on about looking at, because somebody's posting about all the children being killed and things. That's happening at some level. But the minute we get to that, it's a koan. The minute you get, the very second you sink into that heart field, but fully, then you matter itself is moved. Like that, those words of Jesus. When you have faith enough, and it's not just faith, it's the feeling as well, you can move mountains because you have charge over matter. And that's what it means in the Bible, the whole of the world. It's like a virtual reality movie. And the game is to get the ball in the hole, absolutely in the center of the wobble board, you know? And it doesn't matter if anybody else gets it or not, because they're like children who can't tie their shoelaces or do their buttons up yet. But everybody is the same one, the same being at different stages of evolution. And they don't know yet. It's that the neural pathways are focused on this. And it's right. It's right that a child should get what it wants. It's so selfish. It has to take care of itself. That's what it's here for. And we all have to see what our dharma is. So I don't get too bothered about any of it. And it does sound incredibly selfish when you see, but it doesn't help. If I sit here and chew my fingernails and go into despair, that there's something happening, appearing to happen, but actually it's not happening at the level. And when I get to the really deep level, what happens is that this, all I get in playing in the communication games, this huge laughter. When it first started happening in my psyche, got me many, many years ago, I used to go, but look what's happened. A tooth has fallen out, and all there was is these huge ripples of deep belly laughter. And and it's like the laughter that comes through playing with Rahu is huge. But it's not going to be saying it. It has to become innate. You explore it. I promise you it's like that. Relax, 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 relax. Go to the heart and just intend that it be revealed. And it is. I'm sorry, it sounds so airy-fairy, doesn't it? But it's not. I am very grounded. You know, I'm very, very, very practical. Mm-hmm. And the games that I play with people are things that they can actually get not serious, but solid results from.
Mm. No, it's absolutely solid for me to be sitting here and to think the thoughts I think, where it's really me disconnected from my heart and the sense and that stillness at my center. If I'm looking on a screen and looking at horrific images, you know, I'm not embodying any of that. I'm literally in my head, completely distracted and cut off from my felt sense. But so it's absolutely the most practical thing for me to put my hand on my heart and center myself, and how that can have a more positive effect on not just me as a selfish thing, but also anyone I come in contact to and the world, as in I put my drop into the ocean.
Exactly. So if you have somebody that's in your immediate vicinity, not just something on the news, but something that's affecting you, some conflict, some aggression, or whatever it is, the quickest way to resolve it is to know that's reflecting a little speck of conflict that I haven't yet examined inside me. And in the moment, to take your attention to the heart field. If it's feasible and you're not driving or doing that, you put your hand here, because that reminds the body that's what you're choosing. And sometimes you can, do you remember that story I told you once about, I don't know, I can't find the bit, I've had it on the net. And there was a guy running a very great meditation teacher in I think it was in America, New York perhaps. And it was, they were meeting regularly once a week, and some guy walked in off the street, because it was a drop-in group as well, and he sits down, and there's an energy of coldness goes throughout the room, and he, in his presence, focuses on the heart. Within minutes, that guy is crying, and he's opening his backpack, and there's all these bombs and machine guns and grenades, and he said, no, and he's transformed just in that moment by the presence in that group. Now, it was a very beautiful, intense story, and I've not told it with enough weight to it. But that's how you deal with anything. Practice that art of Zen archery, of life magnificence. Practice being in the heart over the littlest little things, whether it's a scratch card or a parking place or a cut finger. You can stop the bleeding in the seconds, or but you've got to practice letting the mind fall ever deeper into the heart of the rose, into the center, into the heart, because that way, when there is something really vital in the world, you can gather a condensation of a group, like one of my groups now, focusing on world issues that don't seem to have anything to do with you, but they are. You find a little bit of conflict within you, or you tidy out a drawer, or you do something practical to demonstrate to your being what you're choosing. And it's the quickest way. Everything is either a demonstration of your choice, or it's an expression. No strategy, no doing to get. No strategic, well, I've got to do, I need some money, so I better go and scrub floors for 10 years and whatever. That's an extreme example, but not strategy. If you find yourself wanting to be strategic, go to your heart first, and maybe there's a different solution. And yes, you will act. You have to act. It looks like doing, but it's not doing when you've made that choice to have the heart's offering, what the heart's desire would be in this. How would it be resolved? That's how people in concentration camps, the great ones that wrote, was Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. That's how you can live in the unbearable circumstances, which would be unbearable, like what's going on in the war. Take it to the heart, not to sit and weep, and that you can weep as well, of course, because we have to awaken the feeling and melt the hearts, melt that there's something to do with me. It is, but inner action, inner what shall we call, taking that compassionate action, and that is the inner choice to see it into its wholeness. And I feel that this period we're in now is a condensation. It's forcing, pushing, making it requiring us to be absolutely present at the pinpoint of the moment now. And if we let go into knowing that all that's going on in the world is an expression of this apparently fragmented, disconnected craziness, we don't even know what's true half the time, because you have to go here to find out what's really going on. And what's really going on, and the depth is actually, it's already done. It's so nothing. And in that, the no place, in the no thing of the heart, you'll find your solution. How you are in this body, how you can best serve in your next action, in your next movement, in your next step, your next pada, the footprint that I was talking about at the beginning, the next little nexus point. And so everything becomes like, every movement becomes an expression of the heart, no strategy. And you'll find that magically, somehow, the circumstances, the impossible things, they somehow just disappear. They melt like, you know, mist in the morning sun. You've got to practice doing the what I call the White Queen's protocol. And she's talking through the looking glass to the White Queen and Alice having a chat. And Alice says, "Oh, but that's impossible." And the Queen looks at her and she says, "That's because you haven't done enough practice," she said. "When I was your age, I used to think 6 impossible," I think it was 6, before breakfast. So you have to say, what does your heart desire? What I call Mr. Frosty Breath, that aspect of the mind that says, can't, no, shan't. And just go, oh yeah, but that's what I want. Like a child, just, oh no, I can't have that bicycle, but I want that. I want it. And with that deep let go, and this period we've got now is somehow playing with that. And the more you let go, the more it will be a kitten paw rather than a lion's wallop. And you see what I'm saying? It's just, it's a fairy tale, and it's not. And the more you go to the heart field, the more you'll experience it in its tenderness. Rahu is sometimes extremely tender with me. I'm having a love affair with him, you see. So, and you can, everyone can have that if you don't go up into your mind and let the contraction stay. Yes, they'll get pulsations, but you don't have to stay like that. But people, if I say this to to people who are not really connected, then you are not really wanting to hear it. They think, well, she's off her trolley, that woman, you know. But I'm not. It actually works. It actually functions in it, and you have to make that innate by trying it out, and things that are playing with it, little things that aren't so important, and saying, yes, I can influence matter. What are my choices? Influence the way the world is coming to its completion. This phase, this archaeological phase, anyway. But the new world, I see so clearly. It's just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, like nature. When you just look at it, you know, you look at a seascape or a mountain range covered in snow, and it's pristine, it's quiet, like the top of a mountain. It's just sorry, I've been rabbiting on again.
Oh, I'm just soaking it up. I'm just soaking it up. I'm left with this sense, and we probably should wrap it up now. But I'm left with this sense of the precision, and it's almost like the arrow has already left the bow, and it's like it's on target, and it's just we need to, you know, we don't need to do anything, but we just get in line with that target.
If you want to have a smooth ride, if you really desire, your heart desires, and the heart is biased, I tell you. We know the sun shines in differently on everybody, but consciousness or this story we're living in is biased into the end of the fairy tale. What happens at the end of a pantomime? Red Riding Hood and the wolf stand hand in hand, and everyone takes a bow and goes, "Oh, that was a good story." And it's if you can see it a bit like that, and practice having little moments in your life, that, as you say, the arrow has already left. The arrow has already hit the target. The new world already exists. All the dimensions are available to us. And the art of playing in this story world is to know that you are all of the dimensions. Even though we're in a body, the veiling that we have over the mind, over the experience that seems to have a cutoff point at death or a bankruptcy or somebody, I don't know, any one of the terrible, apparently terrible things, that they push us and push us and push us, and they surrender a little bit at a time before the biggies happen. And then I don't know, I was totally amazed at going to buy that car. I didn't experience not even a single movement in my solar plexus or my mind, nothing. It was like, this is my chariot, and it was a done deal. And I watch But buying a car is a bit more than just, you know, going buy a couple of avocados for tomorrow and you want nice ripe ones. But you can play with that level. And once you played enough with every level, like not having enough time to get to a meeting on the other side of London, you've only got an hour and it's rush hour, and you arrive there and you think, how could I have done that? That was impossible. But the intention to get there, and if you will let go and not go into that level of Mr. Frosty Breath, you oh no, I want to be there. And then, of course, you get there with 5 minutes and there's a parking place or whatever, and the speaker comes out 10 minutes late or whatever.
Whatever. I've all of those experiences, but what strikes me is, and you've said it already, but like how often, I think about this a lot, how often that even though I know it's hit the target already, even though I know that deep down, right, I amuse myself by this and that and getting into all kinds of twists mentally about, oh, what should I do with this one or that one and all of these things, even though I know that. So it's like I'm playing with Rahu, I'm playing with this kind of fragmented mind stuff.
But you know, even Gary, even when and the mind plays that game, you can still let it run on and put your attention in the heart and witness it, because witnessing the game doesn't cause you any more, what should we call it, karma, if you like, the old idea that you do this and it causes. No, once you know, once you have the habit of witnessing your own mind, you can stay there without it really causing you too much trouble. And I know you like to play with that, and that's what I think when I start to think about what you said you were doing. I think, yeah, that's what he does. He's witnessing at the same time. And it's actually okay, as long as you don't let the mind judge yourself for doing it, that you know you're playing the game and there's a laughter at what you're doing, because you know that you are before and beyond all that as well. And it's okay. It's okay. As long as you go to that place of witnessing from the heart what you're doing. The heart is still consuming all these little ramifications that go on and little bits. It's okay. It's still all right. It's still all right.
It's still all right.
Yeah.
Kishori, this has been amazing as usual. I've really enjoyed this, connecting in with you again and to my own heart again.
Yes.
You know, it's like I do forget sometimes, you know, I'm running around busy, like a headless chicken or just the head of the chicken. Oftentimes it feels. So it's been really enlightening, comforting, centering, delightful, I would say. And I look forward to doing more. But now I'm thinking, actually, because initially I said, oh, let's do Rahu through the houses or the signs in clockwise through the zodiac. And now I'm thinking we should do it the opposite way. I think we should go, as Rahu moves, we should go backwards. We've started with Aries, we should go back to Pisces and go back around that way.
You know, Gary, you do, I'll follow. You pick the astrological riverbed, if you like, and I'll follow there, because it doesn't matter to me. I don't have enough familiarity with the movements, the transits.
But you do in your own way. You just don't have the astrology.
I don't have the mental. I don't have the.
It's a language.
Map. But when you start to say, I get from within, I get, oh yeah, and I can feel it, but I don't have the language exactly. But when you explain it, I get, oh yes, I know all that. But
so how about next
time
then?
Backwards thing. I like the backwards.
I think it's a good one to do, and I think because we did the forwards thing before through the houses, let's go back through the signs. So next time we'll talk about Rahu in Pisces.
That's lovely. Yes, that would
kind of the surrendering, the allowing, the surrendering to the
because
all of it.
That surrendering is the way, surrender and being ready to have the field in which you're surrendering available. So I think it's perfect to actually progress back, like you said, into the surrender point, and then we'll go through all the other ones as well. Oh, what fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Hand on heart, and see you next time.
Yes.